Something you should absolutely be doing if you want to be a very good kickboxer is start working with competitive boxers. Start going in and doing sparring rounds with people who only focus on hands. This is going to make a world of difference in your overall skills because let's face it, when you do kickboxing, so much of what we throw comes from the hands. If you want that sharp, dangerous combo ability, you want to have hands like I've had so many people say, Gabriel, your hands are fantastic. It looks like you could be a boxer. Well, that's because I focused on boxing. And that, guys, is tip number 1 of our 20 tips today. I'm going to roll the intro and we will get back with the other 19. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. 20 tips from a pro kickboxer to you guys. It'll help you whether you're looking to compete or you're just doing this for fun. Overall, this is going to help your game. This is going to help you step up in level. If you guys appreciate the idea of this video, the effort, the time it takes to put in, please give the video a like if you haven't already. Join the channel, get subscribed, give me that extra bump. We're almost at 100,000. It's coming in March, but you can just help get me there that much sooner. Now, there's no real rhyme or rhythm to the order we're going through today. I just wrote down 20 points, 20 things that I know are very important to me, and I'm sharing with you. Proper warm-up is something that is so important. And I've been to many gyms throughout the world. I've seen people utilize certain warm-ups, other gyms no warm-up at all. And I know from experience, I know from years and years, decades of training super hard for competition, that a proper warm-up will make you perform not only better, but it will also help prevent injuries. So take the time, I say 5 to 10 minutes for a proper warm-up. We're talking stretch, loosening up, just maybe some light shadow boxing before you get into the hard stuff. Pad work, in my opinion, it is one of the most important things you can do as you prepare for a fight. If I had to go one thing, only one thing I could do to prepare for a fight, I had to eliminate everything else. For some odd reason, I would go, has to be pad holding. Why does it have to be pad holding? Well, because that is the one time where I can hit full power. I have somebody else controlling the pace. That is very important. When you're on the bag, you control the pace. When you're shadow boxing, you control the pace. But when you do pad work, your pad holder controls the pace. Now, the important part of this is find a good pad holder. Find somebody who knows the right angle when they're holding pads, who's not going to damage you. Find somebody who can get good combos going together, realistic combos. Find somebody who can throw the pads back at you in between, so it's not just 100% offense, it's more like 70% offense and 30% defense. So you're getting that time as well to work on evading punches or blocking punches. Pad work is so important. So overall, my tip for you is find somebody who's very good at pad holding or help teach them what they need to know to be a great pad holder for you. The next tip is core conditioning. It needs to be a focus, not only because we take a lot of shots, but also because when we're in our guard and somebody comes to shove us or hit us or whatever, we need to make sure we're able to brace for that impact so we don't get straightened out. Because once we're up here and defensively, we're in trouble. We want to stay hunched over, and you need that core conditioning for that. The next thing I want to tell you guys about is how many fights you need in the ring before you really start to become as good as you are in the gym. And this is something that enough people don't think about, and it really should be said. And for me, I found in my experience, 10 fights. It's a nice round number. Wasn't maybe exactly there, but right around that point where I went, okay, if my level was up here in the gym, fight number 1, I'm down here. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm kind of similar. And then I started making that jump and I start getting closer and closer. You're never going to be as good as you are in the gym. For most people, there's the occasional person who might actually be better, but for most people, you're going to always be below because of nerves. But the closer you get, the more likelihood you're going to win fights. You're going to perform very well. 10 fights for me. That's the magic number. That's when you start fighting more people who are around your skill level, start really branching out, maybe fighting guys with 20 fights, guys who have titles after 10 fights. Next up, train body conditioning. Do not underestimate how important it is to be tough. You can be the most skilled individual in the world, evading shots, throwing shots, but if you get hit and you crumble, you get hit to the leg and you crumble, it's all going to end for you very quick. You do need to be a tough person in the sport, and it doesn't just come. You have to take impact. You have to develop that insensitivity essentially to it so that you're able to get through those rounds or those fights where you might get a little bit beat up. Sleep and rest is so important. I've talked about that on the channel, but it bears repeating again because it's just something that without it, or lack of it, my performance just goes whoop. And down below, guys, you can find the magnesium that I've been using to get my sleep on point. Give that one a try. And no, this is not a sponsored episode. I just believe in this product so much that I want to repeat it. I want to endorse it once more on the channel just because I think sleep is that important. The next tip I have for you, something that I recognize now that I'm a high-level pro fighter, is you want to try out all the techniques. Now, if we look at something, for instance, let's say like somebody throws a jab. We can parry the jab. We can shell up. We can elbow block the jab. We can move our head to the side. We can fade back. We can put our palm up the middle. That's just a small example of all these different things that we can do for all the techniques that come at us. And that's just talking defense. Now, just because you don't like a particular technique doesn't mean you shouldn't try it out a couple times. Because when you try out a technique, defensive or offensive, doesn't matter which it is, you're going to have a better understanding of what it is, how to get around it, how to counter it. It just makes your whole game that much better. So do not limit yourself to only a small aspect of fight sports. Moving on, I want to talk about how it is not as important as you think to win fights at the gym. This used to be a priority of mine. And then when I started getting more advanced, I started recognizing, you know what? It doesn't matter if I win a sparring match in the gym. What's more important is that I improve. And to improve, you have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to try things you haven't tried before, and very often that results in errors, which means you get hit or you miss shots, which makes it harder to win the rounds. But guess what? They don't matter. What matters is when you're in the ring, when you're actually in competition, and what goes on your record. This is assuming you want to be somebody who is successful in this sport. So stop worrying about your performance in the gym in the sense of winning and focus more on improving. Next up, I want to talk about shin conditioning. Because I already talked about body conditioning, and I know many people are probably going, well, what about the shins? It is a very common misconception that in Thailand, people roll their shins out or they bang it with a hammer or something like that. I've actually done an episode, you can check it out up there, on shin conditioning. But to summarize it here, if you just want it fast and brief, you will get enough shin conditioning by kicking hard pads and kicking bags. That is enough. Do not damage yourself long-term by making silly mistakes like hammering your shins. My next tip is find a glove that suits your hand. We need to make sure that these do not get damaged. These are, as we already talked about, boxing is very important in kickboxing. These are what keep us going. If you eliminate the hands, then you've got to almost be like Buakaw, where your legs are so good, you can almost get away without throwing punches. But if you just head to whatever store you're going to buy your gloves from, and you just say, oh, give me a pair of gloves, you try them on, they kind of hurt your hand, and you don't think anything else of it, you're making a mistake. This is just like shoe shopping for running shoes. Go in, try multiple gloves, find the one that fits your hand best, and then move forward and probably make that your regular glove for the rest of your training career. Next up, I want to talk about fight records and not being intimidated by them, because it's very easy to look at an opponent's record and go, oh my gosh, he has more fights than me. But as we already mentioned, once you pass 10 fights, you're getting pretty good. You're getting closer to that high level. So then you can start going up and fighting people with more fights than you, but you want to make sure you don't get intimidated by it because you don't know the quality of the opponents they've been facing. And ultimately, in my experience, it does not matter that much. What matters is how good you are. I fought so many people throughout my career who had these big, scary records, whether it was volume or just the fact that, they had 30 fights and only 4 losses, and I only had like 14 fights, and you're looking going, oh my gosh. Do not be intimidated by them. Respect them enough, but don't be scared. Next tip, get yourself a custom mouthguard. This is a must for a number of reasons. Number one, when you put a mouthguard in that doesn't fit properly, it's kind of cumbersome. It makes it harder to breathe. It's very frustrating. But number two, how many times have you seen people's mouthguards go shooting out? Very often when that happens, they do not have a crazy high level custom mouthguard because those things get stuck in there. They're so hard to get out. I've had times I had to have my cornerman peel them out because I couldn't get it off with my gloves or with my tongue. If it's just falling out because it's just a run-of-the-mill mouthguard, that's no good. Now, again, not a sponsored episode, but down below, there is a spot where you can get custom mouthguards. They will take a cast of your teeth, send you up a mouthguard. So important. I have had a custom mouthguard pretty much my entire career. Not only career, definitely my entire career, but pretty much since I'd been training for over 1 year. I went, this is very important, and I went and spent the money on it. Invest in yourself. This next one's a big one. Find a cross-training activity that's going to take your cardio to the next level. Very easy example is if you do something over and over and over and over. I could have the best cardio in kickboxing, and then I head to the pool and I do a couple laps and I'm gassed, I'm breathing, I'm just, and I'm so tired, and it's just changing activities. But when you change activities and you start to excel at something that is completely outside your sport, it is going to increase your cardio. I have made running my go-to cross training, but I do other exercises as well, like assault bike, swimming in the summers when it's warm enough to go outside. There are many things you can do. Find something you love and add it in. It is essential to have better cardio. Hockey tape. I have talked to you guys about hockey tape, how important hockey tape is for me in avoiding injuries, or once I have an injury, helping it heal. Just the other day, I was talking about throwing a little strip of hockey tape, well, 2 or 3 strips around the wrist before I wrap to help provide support. I have used hockey tape to help support my knees. I have used them on my toes. If my toes start getting bruised from kicking really hard Thai pads after a little bit away from the gym, then I start wrapping my toes up with hockey tape. I use it for so many things. You guys want a full episode, I guess I could do it, but it's not really essential. Just go pick yourself up some hockey tape. You can wrap up your fingers if they get twisted. You can wrap up your wrist. You can provide support for so many sections of your body, and they only cost like $3. It's the best way to keep your body healthy, to keep your body safe, and spend very little money. Something I started doing years ago was training in different fight styles occasionally. I'm not talking about like going to Kung Fu. I'm talking about switching up your fight style, maybe from somebody who holds his hands out here, then going to this, and then trying the Thai style. And I'd actually do a full sparring round, or sometimes even a full night with that style to see how I do with it. And very often I went, okay, this isn't for me, but sometimes I will pull a technique or two from that style. And more importantly, if for some reason my go-to style is not working and I have to transition in the fight to something else, I've tried these other styles before. I know how they work for me, and I'll be able to properly utilize them if needed. Anybody in the Muay Thai fight world knows about Thailiniment. Probably most kickboxers do, but I'm going to mention it today. What I have down below in the description is the Thailiniment that I like to use. It's not the one from Thailand. This is made in the US. It is called Athlon Rub. It is clean and healthy. And the most important thing for me is when I have an injury, let's say I hurt my shoulder a little bit, or it's really sore, I just slather some on after I finish training, and I feel like the next day, 9 out of 10 times, I'm feeling healed up. It's also fantastic to put on before you start training. If your thighs are really sore from a run that you did the previous day, you just slather it on, helps get you warmed up, eases the warm up, makes it a little bit easier. And when you do your cool down or in between training sessions, it is so beneficial. If you guys haven't got a bottle yet, give it a try. I highly recommend it. It's super clean, and we want that when we're putting something directly on our skin. For our next tip, we are talking about headgear. Now, I want to just talk to you about my opinion on headgear, because throughout the years we've seen a switch. There's a point where everybody wore headgear. You have to wear it to save your brain. And then all of a sudden the Olympics in boxing started going, you know what? The science says you get hit more and your head gets jostled just the same. The only difference is it helps you prevent cuts or bruising on your face. So my tip for you guys is be very aware when you choose to wear headgear. For me, I don't use it in kickboxing or MMA sparring ever. But if I go to box, I do utilize it. And the reason is I find a lot of times when I box, I'm that much closer to people and I'm more likely to clunk heads. At that point, I go, yes, it is important. When I'm kickboxing, when I'm at more of a distance, I very rarely have any head impact, and I'm not worried about cuts opening up in the same way from head clashing, so I don't utilize it. Headgear is important, but you don't need to use it all the time. And that's just a thought I want to put in your guys' heads. We're almost getting to the end here, guys. We were at tip number 18, and that is start eliminating training that doesn't work for you or that damages you. And I used to make this mistake all the time. Somebody would show me a type of training that everybody else did and you have to do, and then I would do it and I go, oh, I'm getting injured. Why am I doing this? Well, because everybody else is. No, start getting rid of things that don't work for your body. If you go in and somebody's doing a big circuit where there's a bunch of push-ups and you just find that the push-ups aggravate your shoulder, but you think you should be doing them, think again. Make alterations. Sometimes you can be that odd person in class who just doesn't do certain exercises or drills if they're not vibing with your body and they are injuring you. Next up, I want to talk about experimenting with different weight cut approaches when we're talking about water weight. There are so many ways we can do it. We can jump on the treadmill with a sauna suit. We can just put the sauna suit on and just curl up into a little ball and hope we start sweating. We can get in the sauna. We can get in a really hot bath. There's so many options. I'm not telling you guys which one to utilize. I'm just saying, make sure you experiment with them all, because I've seen people who love, for example, getting in a really hot bath. It works wonders for them. Other people who get in the hot bath and they come out and they're dizzy and they're ready to fall over and it just doesn't work. If you try out beforehand, you will perform better on fight day. And my final tip for you guys today, this is a big one. Research your opponents. Some people don't do it. Some people, when they do it, don't do it correctly. You watch the video footage. When you watch video footage of your opponent, you see them, you start to get a little bit more comfortable so that when you actually get in the ring, you're not as scared as you would have been. And when you watch them, you utilize things they're best at and you train to avoid it. And you look at their weaknesses and you train to exploit it. Some people tell me they don't research their opponents. I go, man, massive mistake. You should be doing it, in my opinion. That is our final tip for today. If you guys made it through the whole video, wonderful. Thank you for sticking around. If you enjoyed it, you think it's going to be very helpful, please give it a like. If you haven't already, join the channel, get subscribed. As always, guys, train hard, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.